Welcome back to our podcast. Today, we're exploring a really intriguing idea. What if God's invitation is bigger and more inclusive than we imagine?
That's a powerful thought. It challenges the way we draw boundaries around faith communities, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Often we assume certain people are in and others are out, but maybe the invitation is open to everyone, even those we might least expect.
It makes me think of the parable of the great banquet, where the host ends up inviting people from the streets because the original guest didn't come.
Yes, that story flips the script. It's like God saying, "My table is big enough, there's room for everyone."
But if God's invitation is that broad, how do we handle our own instincts to limit who belongs?
That's the tough part. We're so used to categories. Insiders, outsiders, the right kind of people. Maybe it's about recognizing our own biases first.
Right? Sometimes we don't even realize we're excluding people. It's subtle, like who we talk to after a service or who we invite to events.
Do you think faith communities really live out that radical invitation? Or do we just talk about it?
Honestly, I think we struggle. It's easy to say all are welcome, but harder to actually make space for difference. There's comfort in sameness.
That's so true. Real inclusion means getting uncomfortable sometimes, stepping outside our preferences.
I wonder how we'd react if someone truly unexpected walked in, like someone who challenges our assumptions or even makes us uneasy.
That's a good point. Would we greet them with genuine hospitality, or just tolerate them politely?
And what would it look like if we saw every person as someone God has personally invited?
Maybe it would shift our whole approach. Instead of gatekeeping, we'd become hosts, making sure everyone feels seen and valued.
I like that image. Being a host rather than a bouncer at the door, right?
Exactly. And it's not just about big gestures. Sometimes it's small things, like a smile, a conversation, or remembering someone's name.
It makes me think, have you ever felt like the outsider hoping for an invitation?
Oh, definitely. I remember moving to a new city and visiting a church where I didn't know anyone. It was awkward at first, but a simple hello made all the difference.
That resonates. I've been in spaces where I felt invisible, and it's amazing how a little warmth can change everything.
So maybe embodying God's invitation is about those daily acts of welcome, not just a theoretical openness.
Yes, and also about confronting our own discomfort. Sometimes including others means giving up a bit of our own comfort zone.
I think that's where faith gets practical. It's less about believing the right things and more about practicing radical hospitality.
But that can be messy, right? People bring their own stories, hurts, and quirks.
Definitely. But maybe that's the beauty of it. We're all a bit messy, and God's invitation doesn't require perfection.
That's freeing. It reminds me of those come-as-you-are invitations. There's something honest about not having to clean up first.
I love that. There's no dress code, no audition. Just show up and you're welcomed.
So why do you think we struggle so much with this in practice?
Maybe it's fear. Fear of change, fear of losing control, or fear of being uncomfortable.
Or maybe it's habit. We fall into routines and forget to look for the new faces or unheard stories around us.
That's where intentionality comes in. If we don't make a point to look beyond our circles, we'll just keep repeating what's familiar.
I wonder what would happen if every community member saw themselves as an inviter, not just a guest.
That could transform the whole atmosphere. Suddenly, everyone's on the lookout for those who might feel left out.
It's like being at a party and noticing someone standing alone. You can either keep chatting with your friends or go say hi.
And sometimes, that one gesture can turn someone's whole experience around.
It's amazing how small things add up. Consistent kindness can build bridges where there were none.
I'm curious, what do you think it means for God to invite them, whoever them is in our minds?
I think it's a reminder that God's love isn't limited by our preferences or prejudices. The invitation is for everyone, no exceptions.
It's humbling, isn't it? Because sometimes them is us, when we feel unworthy or out of place.
That's a great point. We all need to be reminded that we belong, especially when we doubt it most.
And maybe that's why Jesus spent so much time with outsiders, tax collectors, lepers, people on the margins.
He wasn't just breaking rules, he was showing us what God's invitation looks like in action.
It's almost like he was saying, if you think you're uninvited, think again. You're exactly who I'm looking for.
That turns everything upside down. The last become first and no one is too far gone.
But it also challenges us to check our own hearts. Who are we tempted to exclude, even unconsciously?
It's a hard question. Sometimes it's people who are different from us, politically, culturally, or just personality-wise.
Or people we find difficult, or who make us question our comfort zones?
Exactly. But if we take God's invitation seriously, we have to keep stretching those boundaries.
And that's an ongoing process, not something we finish once and for all.
Maybe it's like hospitality as a lifelong posture, not a single event, but a way of living.
I like that. Always having an extra chair at the table, so to speak.
And not being afraid if someone spills something. That's part of having real people around.
That's a great image. Messy tables, full hearts.
So, what practical steps can we take to live out this inclusive invitation?
I'd say start by noticing who's missing. Pay attention to the edges of the group and be intentional about reaching out.
And maybe ask ourselves, who haven't I listened to lately? Sometimes inclusion is as simple as listening well.
Or being willing to learn from those who see things differently. We don't have to agree on everything to share a meal.
That's so true. Diversity can be uncomfortable, but it's also where we grow.
Have you ever had your perspective changed by someone you almost overlooked?
Yes, once someone I barely noticed at first became a close friend and taught me so much about resilience.
That's beautiful. It's often the people we least expect who have the most to offer.
It makes me wonder, what gifts are we missing out on by keeping our circles too tight?
Probably more than we know. The richness of community comes from its variety.
And maybe that's why God's invitation is so wide, to give us a glimpse of what true belonging looks like.
It's not just tolerance, but celebration of differences.
Yes, creating a space where everyone's story matters.
Sometimes that means letting go of our need to control the guest list.
And trusting that the table gets richer as it grows.
That's a hopeful vision. But it takes courage, doesn't it?
Definitely. Courage to welcome, to risk rejection, and to keep the door open.
But imagine the kind of world we'd create if we all lived that way, constantly making space for one more.
It's a little like those family dinners that keep stretching to fit new faces. The food might run thin, but the laughter multiplies.
I love that. The more the merrier, and the more complete the picture of God's love.
So maybe the real challenge is to keep asking, who else can I invite?
And not just to events, but into our lives, our conversations, our circles.
It's a lifelong journey for sure, but one worth taking.
As we wrap up, here's something to ponder. What would our communities look like if we truly believed that God invited them too, whoever them is?
That's a question that could change everything. Maybe it starts with us, right here, right now.
Thanks for joining us today. Let's keep making space at the table, one invitation at a time.
See you next time. And remember, everyone's invited.